Evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. At this time, I call the meeting to order and declare a quorum. We have 6 members present this evening. Before we begin our meeting as usual, I would like to read a statement. This board was saddened to recently learn of the passing of our former colleague, Mr. Wayne Ridenour. On behalf of the Washington County Board of Education, I would like to share a few remarks to honor and remember his life. To Washington County Public Schools, he was employed as an educator and a coach for 30 years. To this community, he was an elected member of the Board of Education. And to those of us who knew him best, he was a mentor, a leader, a confidant, and a champion of students. Wayne dedicated his entire teaching career to the students at Boonesboro High School, where he worked in the social studies department. After the school day ended, he laced up his sneakers to coach the Warrior basketball and baseball teams. In retirement, he sat as a member of the Board of Education for 16 years, stepping into the roles of president and vice president through his tenure. During that time, he also supported the construction of 9 new schools. He worked cooperatively, yet tirelessly, to pursue educational initiatives for which he was most passionate, including the creation of the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts. Wayne was incredibly proud of his wife, Judy, and his sister, Ruth, who were also fellow educators. Between the 3 of them, they have invested over 130 years of service to Washington County Public Schools. The Board of Education offers our deepest sympathies to Wayne's family. We thank you for the years you have supported him in service to our community. He has truly made an impact in Washington County and on the lives of countless students and colleagues. At this time, I ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time we'll have the approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Stauffer, is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any discussion of the agenda? All those in favor of approval? Okay, we have 6 votes. Student member concurs, so we have a unanimously approved agenda. We'll move to approval of the minutes.
President Williams, I move for the approval of closed session minutes, open portion, dated Friday, June 2nd, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Okay, colleagues, we're voting on the open session portion of the closed session dated June 2nd, 2023. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Motion carries.
President Williams, I move for the approval of closed session minutes dated Friday, June 2nd, 2023.
All right, is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Okay, we're voting on the closed session minutes dated June 2nd, 2023. Thank you. I have 6 affirmative. Motion carries.
President Williams, I move for the approval of public hearing transcript minutes dated Monday, June 5th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the public hearing transcript minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approval, the public hearing transcript minutes dated Monday, June 5th, 2023. Okay, we have 6 affirmative. Motion carries.
President Williams, I move for the approval of work session minutes dated Tuesday, June 6th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the work session minutes dated June 6, 2023? Okay, all those in favor of approval? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Work session minutes are approved.
I move for the approval of closed session minutes dated Tuesday, June 6th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Colleagues, we're voting on the closed session minutes of June 6, 2023. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. That motion carries.
President Williams, I move for the approval of business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, June 6th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes dated June 6, 2023? Nope. All those in favor of approval? All right, we have 5.
Abstain.
Abstention? Thank you, sir. And we have approval of those business meeting minutes with 5 affirmative and 1 abstention. Thank you, colleagues. All right, we'll go right to public comment. I'd like to read from Board Policy KD regarding public comment before I call the first individual. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. So at this time, I have one person on our list who has signed up, one person who's signed up in advance, and that is Mr. Neil Becker. Mr. Becker? Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, board members, Dr. Zavine, and staff. I speak tonight for a couple reasons, but mostly because it's my last opportunity to speak to you as the president. So I might use every single minute. Actually, I'll be very brief in my comments. First, it really has been a privilege to serve the association members and the students that they are so dedicated to during my tenure as the association president. You've often seen me here talking about working conditions, compensation, what we need to do with the commissioners, and most importantly, our partnership opportunities. And I firmly believe that the partnership between the association and the Board of Education and the WCPS staff, the executive staff, has really blossomed in recent years, which has reaped positive benefits for the school system. Thank you, Dr. Sovine and board members, for your work. Continue that work. Continue the push to really put Washington County Public Schools at the top when it comes to doing great things for students and educators. Please continue that partnership with local businesses, with your bargaining units, with the county commissioners, and continue empowering young people like May and all others who are coming through the school system, who will be the leaders in Washington County, in Maryland, and throughout the nation. The blueprint brings challenges, but it also, more importantly, brings opportunities. And it is my hope that the commissioners see the work you're doing and that the over 3,000 employees are doing. Because when they see that work and they recognize the value of public education, it is my sincere hope that they understand the school system and the students we serve deserve to be funded appropriately. So in closing, I thank you for your work. I thank you for the opportunity to serve the association and the students that we care about. I'm not going away. I'm still going to be around, just not in my role as president. So thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker, speaking only for myself, it's been a pleasure to work with you, sir, and I wish you great success in your classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Mr. Becker was the only person whose name I have on the list. Is someone who signed up in advance? Is someone who'd like to come forward to speak this evening? Good evening.
Good evening. I want to thank, my name's Ethan Lowen. I want to thank this board for taking a positive step on an issue that parents have been greatly concerned about. Since the Surgeon General's warning 4 weeks ago that social media is addictive and has created a mental health crisis among children, this board has joined several other school boards in our state to sue social media companies in order to make sure that they protect children from the damage their product causes. And the damage caused by social media is incalculable. Recently, there was a survey taken of teenagers in which they were asked, "What do you wish your parents understood about social media?" One of the most common answers was, "I wish my parents understood what it was like to keep scrolling through social media knowing that it's hurting me, but I'm not able to stop." The first study I ever saw about the effects of social media was towards the end of 2018 when a study was published showing that in the year 2012, the year that the iPhone became common in the hands of teenagers, that same year the self-esteem of girls plummeted. And the accessibility the iPhones allowed to Facebook was determined to be the primary cause. About a week after that study was published, Facebook gave a response to the study, stating that they were in agreement with the spirit of the report's findings and they would make changes to mitigate the damage to children. However, all these years later, no changes have occurred. And the reason is straightforward. Social media is based entirely off of giving the user an emotional need to continue scrolling. And the strongest emotional connection to social media comes from negative emotions. The technical term is negativity bias, meaning that when measured, human beings feel negative emotions roughly 3 times more strongly than the equivalent positive emotions. Quite simply, Facebook was never able to live up to its commitment in 2018 because removing the emotionally scarring impacts or the negativity bias of what its algorithm shows children, meaning that the algorithm greatly emphasizes posts that are dramatic, shocking, risque, and generally things that make parents uncomfortable. If social media ended the negativity bias of its algorithms, children would eventually get bored of social media rather than being addicted to it. The result is social media has found an endless stream of emotionally damaging ideas and trends that change the way our children think. I'll repeat that. In order for children to want to continue using social media needs to cause a change in how children think and perceive the world. It is a similar concept as to why news broadcasts pump up the shocking and the negative instead of just reporting facts. It is why Hollywood has been criticized for going after cheap thrills or just like social media going for the shock factor rather than pursuing the art of storytelling. The primary difference between Hollywood, the traditional media, and social media is that movies and news broadcasts are unable to affect the psyche to the extent that social media does. However, it is vital that we understand that social media did not invent any new ideas or new trends. What social media is guilty of is identifying existing trends that were already the most emotionally scarring, and then increased the intensity and frequency with which children are exposed to those trends as they scroll through their feeds each day. Since children do not have the experience, the life experience, or the education in history and science to separate what social media is causing them to feel or think from what is fact, children are left defenseless and with no choice but to believe that the images and emotions that social media puts in front of them must be true. While it is admirable that this board has chosen to join in this legal fight, we must keep in mind that even if this court case succeeds, the reality is that the methods and tactics that social media employs have become so deeply ingrained in Hollywood, in the media, in politics, that emotional manipulation and even propaganda is now a permanent feature in society. And the schools have an essential role in preparing students for this reality. While reading and writing and math are vital to the quality of life of children, what protects the society from manipulation and propaganda is the ability of the members of that society to call upon science and history and logic to identify the lies and exaggerations and fears that are the only tools of propaganda and manipulation. It is moments like these that we are reminded why education is sacred and why dictatorial governments go to such lengths to interrupt, to make it difficult, to insert social engineering, or to outright forbid the teaching of reading, writing, science, history, or math to the masses, while ensuring that their own children attend schools where those subjects are taught with a laser focus. The ability of American children to become independent thinkers has never been so dependent upon how effectively our public schools teach science and history than it is at this moment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Okay, at this time then, we'll have board member response to public comment. Colleagues, does anyone care to speak? I apologize for jumping the gun and offering my comments following Mr. Becker's remarks. We have no old business this evening, so we'll go right to new business, and our first item under new business is the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Good evening, Mr. Bakewell.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Sovine. Tonight I have 4 items for your review. These items have been reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve awards, renewals, and procurements of unit price contract for nursing and special ed services to various vendors at unit prices and produce renewal to Seashore Fruit and Produce Company Incorporated, Greensburg Farm Warehouse, and Reinhardt Orchards at unit prices, warehouse and delivery services for food and nutrition services, renewal to Excella Distribution and Warehousing LLC at unit prices, and door hardware replacement at various schools to GRC General Contractors, Inc. at a cost of $178,245.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Questions for Mr. Bakewell? Comments? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements as read by Mr. Evans and seconded by Dr. Zentmeyer. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Consent agenda has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item under new business is the proposed closing of Fountain Rock Elementary School and Hickory Elementary School. We have with us Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Rollins, our Director of Facility Planning and Development, and Mr. Criswell, our Senior Projects Manager and Planning Supervisor. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
This time I have something to read regarding these proposed school closings. Each member of the Board of Education received a copy of the superintendent's report and recommendations for the closing of Hickory Elementary School and Fountain Rock Elementary School and the construction of a replacement elementary school at Downsville Pike dated May 2nd, 2023. The superintendent's report has been made available to members of the public for their consideration, and the community has been requested to provide comments. On May 2nd, 2023, school staff provided the public and the Board of Education with a comprehensive briefing with respect to the superintendent's report during the Board of Education's regularly scheduled public business meeting. The briefing included a careful review of the 8 COMAR factors. School staff have conducted meetings with faculty at the 2 schools proposed for closure to discuss the proposed plan and conducted an information session for community members. A notice was issued in 2 newspapers in our community notifying the public that the Board of Education would be conducting a public hearing on June 5th, 2023, and that the board would be considering voting on the superintendent's report at its public business meeting scheduled for June 20th, 2023. On June 5th, 2023, the Board of Education conducted a public hearing for the purpose of seeking input from the community with regard to the superintendent's report. The members of the Board of Education have carefully considered the superintendent's report, the briefing provided with respect to this report, the comments offered by the community, and the responses to those comments. Even if we vote to approve the closing of Fountain Rock Elementary School and Hickory Elementary School, should the Board of Education be unable to build the new elementary school, then Fountain Rock Elementary and Hickory Elementary School will not be closed. I would like to thank the superintendent and staff for their assistance with this process and the members of our community for their comments and recommendations. At this point, the Board of Education may proceed to consider the recommendations set forth in the superintendent's report. Dr. Savine, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, President Williams, and members of the board. Staff has followed the process laid out by COMAR for exploring and acting on a school closure. There have been multiple opportunities to engage with the learning communities of both schools and the Washington County community at large. Now before you is an item to approve the closures of Fountain Rock and Hickory Elementary Schools in 2027. These closures will be making way for a new modern school to be built here along Downsville Pike. Mr. Prue and his team members are here to give us a snapshot of that process to date, and will answer any additional questions you may have in advance of your vote. Mr. Prue.
Thank you, Dr. Svine, Mrs. Williams, members of the board. I believe both of your opening comments have kind of taken the words out of my mouth this evening, but that's quite all right. I think a couple things I'll probably draw attention to, and we have a slide on the screen which I believe is also being shown on our live feed, which shows the dates that staff met with members of the school staff or members of the community. Of course, the public hearing on June 5th, the proposed vote this evening, and also out to the far right, the proposed closing of the school, of the two schools in question, which also coincides with the opening of the new school, which is actually right on this property here at Downsville Pike for June, the closing of the schools in June 2027, for the opening of the new school in August 2027 with the start of the new school year. I think the only other item I think I would raise for the board members in case there's a question is that your approval this evening does not commit you to the actual funds, the estimated funds that are in the written report, but it does authorize staff to move forward with the process. So if you were to vote approval of this recommendation this evening, we will immediately go to soliciting services of an engineering team to begin with the educational specifications, the narrative of what the school will look like, which then leads to both a schematic and design drawing documents, which then will lead to construction documents that can be bid for the project to be bid to construction firms to build the school. So in all of those steps along the way, you have stopgaps. So by the time we bring you the proposal for procurement of the design services, you have a stopgap to make that approval there. As we move forward to construction documents, you have another stopgap. At any point that the funding is not available for this project, you have a stopgap. So know that this is just one step along the road of many as we get to the closing of the two schools and the opening of the new in 2027. So with that, I think we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion?
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the closure of Fountain Rock and Hickory Elementary Schools upon the successful construction completion and opening of a Downsville Pike Elementary School.
Thank you, Mr. Gessert. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stelver. Is there discussion or any questions? Dr. Zentmeyer.
This is probably one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make. As a member of the Facilities Committee, a member of this board, I understand intellectually why we're doing this. As the grandparent of two Fountain Rock students, a member of this community, someone who went to a one-round school at Funkstown Elementary. Bigger is not always better. So I have to say, my approval tonight is with great trepidation.
Thank you, Dr. Zedmeyer. Anyone else? Mr. Stauffer?
Several points I'd like to address tonight. First of all, I wrote down here, while there are pros and cons to closing these two schools, it's not something we haven't done many times in this county through the years. Where I went to school, Washington School in the West End, the building still stands. It was first through 8th grade when I went there a long time ago, and it was closed, at least the middle school portion of it was closed when they built Western Heights, I guess, back in the 1970s. One of the things, though, that stands out in my mind about building this school, in a day and age when school safety is so important and so forth, I think this school, which will be have actual walls inside of it, won't be an open school like Fountain Rock and like Hickory. There are no walls in there. If a shooter were to get in those two schools, there aren't any doors to close and lock and all that type of thing, or very few. But I think from a school safety standpoint, it would be a very good. Concerning Fountain Rock, suggestion was made at the last hearing that why not build a new school on that site? Well, the thing of it is, the land that my son went there, and a couple things about it. One is the fact that the land where you would have available to build a new school is the septic field there, so I don't know where the kids would go while you're building that new school over the septic field and so forth, so I don't know where they would go there. Also, Fountain Rock is located, Route 68 comes down and there's a hill there. As you enter, right before a white brick rancher house, there's a hill there. And so it's difficult sometimes to get in and out because those cars along that road don't always travel whatever the speed limit is now, 40 or whatever it is now. So that is a problem. Hickory, there's no area to expand. There's no area to expand whatsoever on that site. And the other thing of it is the fact that, talk about a dangerous intersection, there's none worse than trying to get buses out of there and get out of there and enter Virginia Avenue, because the cars roll along there. Believe me, the speed limit I think is 40, but cars don't always obey that. So I would hope that, because it was raised about this being dangerous out here with the monstrosity across the road, that warehouse, that it's going to be dangerous and so forth. I would just hope that the state and local government would work with WCPS to make this intersection out here somehow, some way safe for children and parents and everybody coming into and leaving this facility. Also, I have to put my glasses back on, have a question. The question was raised about why couldn't it be a 5-round school instead of a 4-round school? Are we limited by the state on that, or what is that?
Maybe Chad, this comes to enrollments, maybe this is your expertise.
Yeah, so in theory, it still could be a 5-round school. We have not locked in with the state yet on any of the enrollment justification. That actually doesn't happen until you get to your first round of funding. So it's something we would continue to monitor. We have some developments in the area. We're seeing a lot right now kind of to the north of Hagerstown, but we are seeing some to the west. So it's as we move forward in this process, it is certainly something that could be considered. At a minimum, we would want to design the school similar to how we did Jonathan Hager, where we would have an expanded core or a larger cafeteria, larger kitchen, larger library, enough to support that 5th round if it would be warranted in the near or much further out in the future if we'd ever want to add it. We certainly want to take that into consideration. So say we would move forward with the 4-round facility, if 5 years from now or 10 years from now, the enrollment projections would justify an additional round, we would want to be able to add that onto the facility without having to do major modifications or disrupt students or staff. Similar to how we did Jonathan Hager, it has the ability to build a wing out to it so we could fence it off and not interrupt bus or parent drop-off. We would want to give that kind of consideration towards the front. If it were something that in the next year or two, if we see real estate kind of, I don't want to say rebound, because it really has kind of, everyone's in a state of flux right now, but say we would see something occur where the enrollment would come through and we would want to consider adding and going ahead and doing a 5th round for this facility, as the process moves forward, we would be looking at an additional about $2.5 million from the local side that we would need to come up with to cover that additional round. The state would need to be able to support an additional about $4.5 million worth of funding. So it would be about $7 million total, but we would have to explore that and have those discussions with all the parties to make sure it was something we could bring to fruition. But it's certainly possible. We are going to plan for it. And then as the process moves forward, I think those are decisions that can all be discussed and made if it's something that we want to go forward with.
And one last concern I have, and I raised this in the work session when we had it on this, is about with Hickory being a Title I school, that the new school, because of the mixture of the 2 student bodies, might not be a Title I school, and those students who need those benefits, I'll call it, you know what I'm saying, that they would still somehow be eligible to get that assistance and have those programs that benefit them. So that's something that I think we said you guys would monitor. So, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
So, quite frankly, to be blunt, I am against closing these schools. I do worry that there are other unintended consequences that maybe I personally am prioritizing that other people are not. But you know, to agree with Mr. Stauffer, I do worry about school safety, and you know, quite frankly, schools with no classrooms is just stupid. So if we have the ability to change that, I think it is worth looking into and doing. I thought the one public speaker we had to come up and say, you know, tell us why we should not be doing this, or, you know, maybe made some recommendations for changes to what our plan was. I thought she came up with some very valid points. But at the end of the day, the plan that is brought forward brought, other than her, no public discord there. So between the school safety part and the lack of public concern, I feel compelled to vote for this. The only thing I would like to know is if and when this does take, I shouldn't say when because we haven't voted yet, but if this does take place, we're going to have to do some kind of redistricting. Is the current plan just going to be as simple to remove the boundary between the 2 schools that currently sits, or are we looking at doing something broader?
I think typically that comes down to the charge that the board supports to the Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee. Typically speaking, in a case like this, you would also look at adjacent school district boundaries to make sure that you're addressing other potential overcrowding or undercrowding issues in adjacent schools at the same time. So I don't think it's quite as simple as removing the boundaries, but I think we would plan to entertain a redistricting effort related to this school, probably over a 2-year period where the board could have a final decision before the end of the school year that ends in June 2026, so that families will have a whole year to recognize where they may be in the 2027-2028 school year when the new year opens and the new building opens.
So the current plan then is to look at the area that is immediately affected by this. We're not looking at currently just doing a broad-based redistricting plan.
Right, so, you know, looking, and guys, fact check me, but I think, you know, outside of these 2 schools, these attendance zones touch Sharpsburg, Williamsport Elementary, Lincolnshire, Jonathan Hager, and Emma K. Daub. I don't think I missed any. And Rockland Woods, Rockland Woods. So we would look at those 6 schools and look at the adjacencies, and there may be places where we say, you know, it might make sense for this road, especially on the fringes of the district, may make sense for this road to go to another school that actually might be closer than coming to where they are today. Or we might be able to support walkers to another school that would be bused currently. and wouldn't have to be bused to the new school. So there are opportunities we might look at that might make more sense than what's there currently.
Just to add on, the redistricting process would probably start in the fall of '24 next year, where we would look at that year's enrollments at all those schools that Mr. Prue was discussing, and then we'd bring a preliminary report to the board, and then we'd wait another year and look at the enrollments in '25, '26, and see if that causes us to make any changes or changes to the recommendations, and then we'd bring it to the board after that second enrollment. So we'd try to look at 2 years' worth of enrollments to make sure we're getting it as right as we can.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Williams. Thank you. My major concern, I think, with this is the fact that the issue of being out here on the dual highway, the entrance and exit to this school. But it doesn't overweigh the fact that over the years I've visited both of those schools that we're looking to close, and they are open round schools, and the safety issue has been a huge concern. It's gotten more put into the limelight recently, and we have to look at all avenues. With those schools, I think in the past we've looked at ways that we could maybe enclose them, and it was impossible. We just could not put walls up in these schools to get air conditioned into the rooms. We had a lot of concepts that we were trying, and it just didn't work. And we knew that this was, going to be a problem. Luckily, the folks that purchased this building, the school board members that went and purchased this area, saw the potential of having land. And it has saved the taxpayers money to do this. And we have an area out here that we can utilize and put a state-of-the-art school, as we have built in Sharpsburg and Jonathan Hager. So I look forward to seeing that come to fruition and seeing how Washington County continues to lead the pack and putting another school, a new school, and working together to making, fiscally sound school system where we're looking at all avenues of making sure that we're not overspending, in one school to save it, where we can combine two to save money. So I thank, our committee. I thank the facilities group that has been working for probably years on this. I've been on that for, quite a few many years, and we have been talking about this. They have put a lot of time. Chad has put a lot of effort into, the numbers, how we're going to get to that. Rob, the concepts of how this is going to work, and the money, how this is all going to come down. And Jeff and his crew has just done an outstanding job. I look forward to this new school on the Downsville Pike. I'm sure that there are some there's some issues that we have to overcome, but we will, and we will, and it'll be wonderful. So I am just really excited to get this process started, and I hope it, I'm still around to see it come to fruition. So, and we need new schools. We need schools. So I'd like to thank the citizens of Washington County, because they pay their taxes. I'd like to thank the commissioners for helping us with the funding in the future. So I will be supporting this 100%.
I think Mr. Gessford and a number of you have mentioned the Downsville Pike, safety and traffic concerns, and staff has already begun in conversation with the county engineer to talk about what the traffic warrants currently say related to the warehouse building that is across the road from us, and what we could anticipate with traffic coming from the new school, and how that may affect the current entrance for this facility and the proposed entrance that we're looking to add across from Sterling. And I think with those traffic warrants, you're likely going to see improvements made to the roadway that are going to improve the safety for both current residents in the area, staff in this building, staff and students at the new school and their families, and also the warehouse across the road. So I think you're going to end up with a better product on Downsville Pike than you have today. And I think, to Mr. Gessler, to your other questions, we have looked at those renovations of both schools, and that's included in the report in terms of, what would need to be done. They're at the point where they need either full modernization or replacement, and the math is what it is at the cost per square foot and the square foot allocation for 2-round at each of those schools versus 4-round here. The way it just works out, it is significantly cheaper to build on the new site, and I think hopefully the community in Washington County recognizes that this is the most fiscally responsible plan. And it may have its other drawbacks, but in terms of tax dollars and dollars and cents at the end of the day, it makes a lot of sense.
And we do have options, like you said, we have, a lot of people don't know that we have a back entrance. We have other options that we can come off of this road. So if you drive down, you think this is the only option here, it is not. So, we'll have to see what that plan looks like in the future, because this area is growing up, but we do have potential. And so, I think with that, I think it's a positive.
You wanted to say? Okay, I would like to express my appreciation to Dr. Savine, Mr. Prue, Mr. Criswell, Mr. Rollins, for the comprehensive report that you put together. I think you did an outstanding job of reviewing those 8 COMAR factors, which made it very easy for me as a board member to read and understand the rationale. And, safety issues, we've already talked about the open school. We've talked about how fortuitous it is that we have this land out here. So I thank you for the work that was done, meeting with the faculties of the 2 schools to gain their input. And I thank those who, from the public, made their comments regarding their concerns. We appreciate that input. And I feel very comfortable voting for the closure of these 2 schools. One of the things that comes to mind is that while these schools will not be on the Fountain Rock property or the Hickory property, they will be out here on the Downsville Pike. It's something like, is it 4 minutes from the current schools? So that's minimal. So I think that's something that we can be grateful for, in addition to having a beautiful, safe new school that's going to be very conducive to learning. So, anyone else? All right, then we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mr. Gesford's motion, Mr. Stauffer's second, to approve the closure of Fountain Rock and Hickory Elementary Schools upon the successful construction, completion, and opening of the Downsville Pike Elementary School. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And you're staying at the table because our next agenda item is our 2023 Educational Facilities Master Plan, or as we fondly refer to it, the EFFP. So, Mr. Prue.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Board members, Dr. Spine, we shared in work session the Educational Facilities Master Plan for 2023. On May 16th, 2023, we had a work session to discuss this voluminous manual that we produce every year for the state. We also have a slide to share with you as well. With your approval this evening, this report will go down to the state for the IAC, the Public School Construction Program, and also the Maryland Department of Planning. Your approval on the last item starts to launch the first item on our approvals, which will be coming forward in the 2025 CIP, which we'll bring forward to you in September, which is for local planning approval for the new school. This is the step in the process. After we get local planning approval from the IAC, we can then begin to start drawing money towards the project. So that's a key item. What the EFMP also launches forward 3 systemic projects for the 2025 CIP, which you can see on the screen would be HVAC replacements at Boonesboro High School Hancock Elementary School, and Springfield Middle School, all 46 years or older, each of those, and so well timed for those replacements. So with your approval this evening, we will move forward on the next phase, the CIP, and of course, sending this report to the state.
Thank you, Mr. Prue. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mrs. Williams. I move for the approval of the 2023 Educational Facilities Master Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any questions, any discussion?
I have a curious comment, a question. You know, they say nothing lasts like the old things. I know we've got a refrigerator in our house is not near as good as the old refrigerator we had. We've had more problems with it, and it's a good refrigerator, but will the new HVAC systems last this long? Maybe that's a stupid question, but just curious.
Well,
Get the crystal ball out there.
Well, I mean, you guys keep up with the state and
you can't
the
guarantee.
dependency of these things. I mean,
You can't necessarily guarantee that they'll last as long as what we have with good maintenance, and our crew does a good job keeping things up. You would hope that they would, but some of the systems we're putting in haven't even been around for 15, 20 years of heavy use or usage throughout building projects. So there's not always even a history on these new systems that could let you know whether or not they're going to last as long. So I guess I'd say with good maintenance and luck, they will last a long time. Hopefully, some of the schools we're putting them in at their age, we'll be replacing the schools before we need to necessarily replace the HVAC system sometime in the future.
because these are amazing ages of these things.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's my question, with the ages on these systems. Was there a lot of maintenance through the years, through those 48, 46 years?
I think
Yes.
you could argue in a lot of ways, you know, we're limping these things along, and our maintenance team really does a tremendous job working on preventative maintenance and working with our outside contractors to keep our systems running. And, you know, we talk at length in work sessions and in board meetings about how much we have for capital funds and how far that dollar stretches, and it doesn't stretch nearly as far as it used to. So it really is a lot of essential work from our maintenance team to keep these systems ongoing and running. And, you know, at some point, too, you just run out of parts. And the parts are not manufactured, and now you're trying to get something specifically fabricated that matches or quasi-matches to keep those systems running. So it's definitely time.
Well, a huge thank you to that maintenance team or those teams. They're very appreciated. Any other questions? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mr. Gaspard's motion, Dr. Zentmeyer's second, to approve the 2023 Educational Facilities Master Plan. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmatives, student member concurs. Motion carries. We have an approved plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item is consideration of our state fiscal year 2024 local application for federal funds. We have Dr. Brunson, our Director of Special Education, here to present. Good evening, Dr. Brunson.
Good evening. Good evening, President Williams and members of the board, as well as Dr. Savine. I present to you the local application for federal funds that we call the LAF grant, that is used to pay for costs associated with providing special education and related services to students with disabilities in WCPS for FY24. As noted in the executive summary of changes, an increase of 234 students were found eligible for individualized educational programs in FY24. With the LAF, we received a total increase in funding of $374,457 over FY23, and the subsequent slides provide a visual representation in pie charts of the distribution of funds starting with FY24. And then as a reference, I also included FY23 as well as FY22. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the state FY 2024 local application for federal funds.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Now we can have discussion or any questions for Dr. Brunson?
I do have a question for Dr. Brunson, and I think you started, what, last month maybe? You've been here for about a month so far. So I don't think it's fair for me to expect you to know the answer to this yet. But what I would like to know is, with these funds, do they require us to implement new programs that we otherwise may not have, that maybe aren't fully funded, that we have to put in our own general fund money to pick up the rest of the lift on that? Or you know, does this kind of give us all the money we need for all the programming required as part of these funds?
So the LAP is actually a supplement of funds that are added to, so it's actually going to add more to our funding as opposed to supplanting the funds or replacing the funds that we currently have coming to us from our general funds.
Okay, thank you.
Vote. We're voting to approve the fiscal year 2024 local application for federal funds. All those in favor? Okay, I have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. We have an approved application. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just say something?
Sure.
This is all the paperwork that goes with this.
Application.
It's a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, our 5th agenda item this evening is a donation to Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School. And we have with us presenting Dr. Jana Palmer, Executive Director for Elementary Education. Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Zavine, and members of the board. I'm requesting approval of a donation of $5,350.94 to Ruth Ann Primary from their PTA. Funds will be used to provide field trips and school experiences, and additionally, funds will be used to provide attendance incentives and various other student rewards. So thank you for considering the donation.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, move to approve a gift of, let me put my glasses on. Move to approve a gift of $5,350.94 to Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School from the PTA.
Thank you, Mr. Stalver. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any questions, any discussion?
Not about the amount, but in the executive summary, the Ramps PTA is disbanded. That's sad to hear. That is probably one school, in my mind, my opinion, that needs parent involvement and so forth. Just not enough
I think
backing? What?
During COVID, we had a few of our PTAs
Can't
that,
hear you.
during COVID, a few of our PTAs struggled, and they have struggled to regain
Okay.
participation. So I know that's something, actually, Ruth Ann Monroe and Eastern have looked at combining efforts and perhaps moving to a PTO instead of a PTA. So they are still looking at options to bring parents in for participation.
That's all.
Yep.
We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve a gift of $5,350.94 to Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School from the PTA. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Student member concurs. Thank you, Dr. Palmer. All right, our final item of new business is the consideration of an agreement for amendments to the personnel policies and procedures for administrators and supervisors by the Washington County Board of Education, dated July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and wages effective July 1st, 2023. Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Sabine, members of the board. So as Mrs. Williams just shared, we're asking for your consideration of an agreement for amendments to the personnel policies and procedures for administrators and supervisors.
Thank you, Mrs. Baker. Is there a motion?
Madam President, move to approve the amendments to the personnel policies and procedures for administrators and supervisors by the Washington County Board of Education dated July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and wages effective July 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the amendments to the personnel policies and procedures for administrators and supervisors by the Washington County Board of Education dated July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and the wages effective July 1st, 2023. All those in favor? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
you very
Baker.
much.
That brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Sovine.
President Williams, members of the board, I'll be keeping my comments brief this evening. Just like to share a few reminders for the summer and as we prepare for the coming school year. I was pleased to join over 100 participants this morning for the I Love You Guys emergency training. These nationally renowned experts are leaders in crisis response and post-crisis reunification, specifically in the area of the school settings. Organizations from across the community and some of our neighbors are attending this training today and tomorrow. I'm so thankful to have the participation of so many of our partner agencies, including the Department of Social Services, local law enforcement agencies, fire and rescue and emergency services personnel, the Washington County Health Department, and security staff from some of our neighboring school systems. The training was made possible through a grant from the Maryland Center for School Safety. Also like to thank our partners in Hagerstown Community College for allowing the training to be hosted on their campus. Also, Washington County Public Schools are operating on our summer hours schedule now. So all buildings have extended hours Monday through Thursday, and schools are closed on Fridays. This helps us to save some additional money when we don't keep the lights on and cool the buildings for an additional day during the summer months. Please be aware we also have fewer staff in our schools over the break. If you need to visit a school, we recommend that you make an appointment or call ahead before your visit. Finally, our summer meal sites are in full swing now. There are 14 locations where meals are served. These are primarily located in the city of Hagerstown, but we also have a site at Smithsburg Middle School and Whitmire Park in Hancock. These are areas of our community where 50% or more of the children qualify for free and reduced meals. Any child 18 years old and younger can visit the site to receive a lunch. The meal must be eaten on site, so we're in compliance with federal guidelines. Just want to say that we're so thankful to our food services staff who support these locations throughout the summer. President Williams, members of the board, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sovine. I see that Dr. Webster, our Associate Superintendent for Administration and Leadership, is here with personnel actions to be considered for this evening. Dr. Webster?
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Sovine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there were several staff changes presented for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. My colleagues were voting to approve personnel actions as discussed earlier in closed session that are dated today, Tuesday, June 20th. All those in favor? We have 6 affirmative, so we have approved actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, reports to the board. We have committee reports. Dr. Zentmeyer, would you like to begin?
No report tonight?
No report.
We'll meet again in August.
No report for curriculum instruction, and you're meeting again in August. Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Nothing new for finance.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Gesford?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Williams. Facilities, we'll plan to meet in August unless we have something that needs to be discussed for the new school and things coming up. So our plan will be to see everybody in August.
Gesford. Human Resources.
Human Resources won't meet again until September.
That brings us to miscellaneous business, consideration of future agenda items. We have a meeting coming up on July 11th, and colleagues, I remind you that we are having one meeting in July, and that will be on Tuesday, July 11th. And the only agenda item at this time is the Maryland Accelerate recognition. Do you have any agenda items that you would like to see placed on the agenda for a future business meeting? Please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know, and we'll take care of getting that item on a future agenda. That brings us to board member comments. Ms. Cruz, would you like to begin down there this evening?
Sure, thank you. Well, tonight is it. This is officially the last one, and I just want to say thank you to everyone on the board. It's been such a learning experience this year. It's been a crazy year, senior year, applying to college, but something that has always been really nice is coming to these Tuesday evening board meetings and listening to public comment and hearing discussions and attending committees. It's been a really fun year, and I just want to thank everyone. It's been an amazing experience, and I can't wait to take the what I've learned into the University of Maryland in the fall. So thank you, everyone, and I'm excited to see what else WCPS is going to have in store, because my sister goes to North, so she'll keep me updated. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Mrs. Murray?
I just want to say good luck to May. It's been a pleasure getting to know her this year. You've been an excellent SMOG, and I know you'll do very well in college.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Mr. Stauffer?
I'd just like to say that I was sad to hear of the passing of my former colleague, Wayne Ridenour. Quite frankly, Wayne and I didn't always agree sitting on this board about some issues, but I always knew where Wayne stood. And, I guess we agreed to disagree. But it's always sad when I hear of the passing of someone who's close in age to me. I'm older than Mr. Ridenour, but it's always sad because it's a life taken far too soon.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Gesford?
May, I just want to say congratulations on fulfilling your year here. I know that you've been looking forward to your new adventure at Maryland, so congratulations. We will miss you. Come back and visit, or at least send an email when you can. So thank you very much for your service to Washington County, the students of Washington County, and to the board. Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
May, congratulations on a successful 12 years here, I guess 13 if you count kindergarten, right? Congratulations on your time here, and I know you'll be just as successful as you move forward. Keep up all the hard work. That's one thing no one could ever take away from you, so if you work hard, you'll always do well. You know what, there are a couple other things I'd like to ask and discuss, but I think I'll save that for another time.
Dr. Detmer?
Yesterday, we celebrated the oldest national commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. On June 19, 1865, General Gordon Granger proclaimed freedom in Texas, hence Juneteenth. Months after the legislation and 3 years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were still held in Texas. They didn't know they had been freed, kind of like not knowing you've been freed from the bondage of sin through redemption. However, federal troops arrived to take control of the state and move forward to ensure freedom. Juneteenth gives us a day to remember, reflect, and move forward in this land of the brave and home of the free. Next up, the 4th of July. Have a safe and star-spangled celebration in May. Go Terps.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. May, you've been an excellent SMOB. I've enjoyed working with you, and I wish you all the best at College Park. Go learn a lot. Dr. Savine, would you like to say anything before we adjourn?
I just echo the sentiments of board members. May, thank you for your service. You've represented the student body well, your role as a student board member, and know that you will represent WCPS well at the University of Maryland.
Colleagues, anyone have any final thoughts? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.